Delaware County's only live television newscast from Ball State University's Unified Media Newsroom. You're watching NewsLink Indiana Midday.
Welcome to NewsLink Indiana Midday. I'm Alana Gaither. Ball State's Office of Inclusive Excellence is now closed, and some of the staff there is being moved to support the new Office of Strategic Planning Support. In an announcement from President Mearns yesterday, he informed of the Board of Trustees an unanimous decision to comply with President Trump's executive order to end DEI. In a video he sent with the announcement, he had this to say.
For many years, we have received Dear Colleagues letters from different presidential administrations. Irrespective of the subject matter and the changing impact of these various policy positions, we have consistently changed our policies and our practices to comply with the most recent guidance. So it would be difficult, even hypocritical, to defy the Trump administration's order and guidance simply because some people disagree with the administration's legal analysis or its policy positions. Failing to comply with President Trump's executive order could lead to significant adverse consequences for our university and our students. For example, the administration could unilaterally suspend or terminate federal research grant contracts. The administration could also prohibit our faculty from receiving any future federal research grants all the way through January 2029. And if the administration were to conclude that we had failed to comply with the president's executive order, the Department of Education could conceivably determine that our students are no longer eligible for federally funded financial aid, things like Pell Grants and federal student loans. That outcome would be devastating for so many of our students. So I decided to recommend to the board that we must take the necessary steps to comply fully with President Trump's executive order.
During the public meeting with the board, they also proposed changes in the wording of Ball State's Freedom of Expression statement and 2012 value statement. These changes are being made in accordance with compliance to President Trump's Dear Colleague letter. The identity of the shooter in the mass shooting at Florida State University has now been released. Police say he's a 20-year-old FSU student whose mother is a local sheriff's deputy. The fatalities include 2 men who weren't students, and at least 5 others were injured. Amy Kiley reports on how witnesses say the shooting unfolded.
He let off a shot kind of in our direction.
Witnesses recount terror and disbelief during a deadly shooting rampage at Florida State University yesterday.
A dangerous or life-threatening situation exists.
2 people are dead and several are wounded as a result of that violence. One student says she was walking across the green near the Student Union building when she saw a man standing near an orange Hummer. She says he fired a gun in her general direction and then pulled a smaller firearm out of the vehicle. She recalls he was scowling but calm and says he shot a woman wearing purple scrubs in the back.
That's when I realized there was no target and that it was anybody he could see, and I took off.
The witness says she heard repeated gunshots behind her as she ran to her apartment.
It still honestly hasn't really settled that those guns were real and people died.
Another student says he was in a nearby classroom and helped barricade this door. A priest says he helped people shelter in a nearby church building. He says he later went out to minister to any victims and saw a body.
I had the realization that, even if this isn't my kid, this is somebody's kid.
A local doctor says he took part in surgeries for the injured. He says he's an FSU graduate, and though he's seen his share of trauma.
A mass event like this that's, right outside at our own university really hits close to home. I'm
Amy Kiley reporting.
Donations to Harvard University have surged in the wake of a federal funding freeze. That's according to the Harvard Crimson, the Ivy League student newspaper. The Crimson reports Harvard received nearly 4,000 online donations in less than 48 hours this week. The donations total more than $1 million. By comparison, Harvard received just 37 donations on Sunday. The money started rolling in after President Donald Trump's administration demanded Harvard implement policy changes such as scrapping its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and performing its admissions process. Monday, Harvard President Alan Garber rejected the demands, which started the donations flowing. Hours later, the Trump administration announced it would freeze more than $2 billion in grants and contracts at Harvard, and donations surged even higher. More than 1,000 international students and graduate students have had their visas revoked by the Trump administration. That's according to university statements and spokespersons. The students are from more than 130 schools in at least 40 states. Only a handful of the universities say they knew why their students' visas were terminated. Federal officials have not specified the reasons, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio has repeatedly said that some behavior will not be tolerated, including participating in protests. It's unclear if all of the students who visas have been terminated must immediately leave the country or if they can stay to continue their education. Maine Governor Janet Mills is speaking publicly for the first time since the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against the state. The lawsuit claims Maine is violating Title IX by allowing transgender student athletes to compete in girls' sports. But as Anna Kuhn reports, the governor says she welcomes the legal challenge.
I'm happy to go to court and litigate the issues that they've raised in this court complaint. A complaint which, by the way, cites no authority, no case law for their position on the sports issue.
The Trump administration filed a lawsuit against Maine Wednesday for openly and defiantly flouting Title IX by allowing trans athletes to participate in girls' sports. The lawsuit claims the term sex does not mean gender identity.
It is just totally unfair, and it's against the law. It is absolutely against federal law.
But Mills says that's only Trump's interpretation of the law, a take that she argues is incorrect, calling the lawsuit a distraction from other issues his administration faces.
To target people, a minority group, who are already targeted in other ways, in cruel and unfair ways, is a sad and cruel distraction.
Republicans continue to argue trans athletes put other girls at a disadvantage. But today, Governor Mills pointed to one Maine athlete, Maddie Ripley, who won the state wrestling title against boys in 2023 and in 2024.
Suddenly, they are, bettered, if you will, in the sport or beaten in the sport by a male.
Women can do very well in sports of all kinds, and I support that.
Governor Mills was also asked about a northern school district that has made plans to change its Title IX policy to align with the Trump administration's demands. She says she is not going to give the district legal advice. Now let's take a look at today's NewsLink Indiana weather. These are the conditions right now. It's currently 70 degrees under mostly sunny skies. Expect a warm, windy day today with a high around 80 degrees. Some strong storms are possible late tonight. And get ready for a wet Easter weekend and slightly cooler temperatures in the 7-day forecast. High temperatures will be dropped to the 60s and 70s, and it's still nice for this time of year. The American Foundation of Science Suicide Prevention wants people to know there is help, and it held an Out of Darkness walk on Ball State's campus this week. NewsLink Indiana's Jake Dickman learns why this was more than a walk for awareness.
Sometimes the best way to raise awareness for something is to simply put one foot in front of the other. And that's exactly what's happening here on the campus of Ball State University, as the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is hosting an Out of Darkness walk. But for one organizer, it's so much more than just a walk in the park.
I was a teacher, and so we saw a lot of just like mental health struggles happening with students on campus and even in the schools as low as like elementary schools. That's where I taught.
For Nia Townsend, mental health is more than just depression and anxiety. To her, it's the struggles of losing a loved one.
I personally have a cousin who passed away from suicide, and so that's how I got involved in the first place with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Townsend's experience both in the classroom and within her family led her to the AFSP. It was once she was there that she realized Ball State was lacking something other campuses had.
They had been at Purdue, I had been to Butler walks, I had been there, IU has a walk, lots of campuses have walks, and so we were like, Ball State should have one too.
And so she brought the Out of Darkness walks here to Muncie with the goal
to walk in solidarity and support of those who are struggling with mental health.
And
honor those who maybe either are dealing or struggling with mental health, who know someone who is dealing or struggling with mental health.
And to always know,
we're here for you, we're in support, we need you.
In Muncie, Jake Dickman, NewsLink, Indiana.
Mental health is physical health, so don't be afraid to text or call 988 if you are struggling. And that's your NewsLink webcast for today. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to join us tonight at 6:57 on Ball State PBS. And for news anytime, anywhere, go to ballstatedaily.com.